Check, check, mic check. Check, check, mic check. Welcome to Podcast Envy, episode number 46. I'm your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder, and today I am going to make this intro super short because I want to get straight to the meat and potatoes. In my case, the vegan meat and potatoes. This episode is not sponsored by Beyond Meat, I promise. I want to get straight into my conversation with three other, besides myself, fantastic female editors in the podcasting industry. These are ladies that I have been following on social media, that I have met in person and attended conferences with, and who I really, really enjoy, who are all podcasting, editing podcasts for other people, and doing coaching and consulting for other podcasters in different capacities. Jennifer Longworth of Bourbon Podcasting, Carrie Caulfield Arick of YaYa Podcasting and the show Just Podcasting, and Britany Felix of Podcasting for Coaches. If you think editing is boring, don't skip this episode because it is really, honestly, truthfully, one of the most fun Podcast Envy episodes I have ever recorded. This episode is so much fun that you might forget to write down all the links and resources. Never fear, it is done for you. That's what show notes are for. You can find the links to all of the things that we mention, including an exclusive video that you're not going to want to miss, at thecreativeimpostor.com/podenvy046 for episode 46. And I just want to say a quick thing. You will hear us talking about editing as a way to give people their time back or to save people time. And this does not just mean podcast hosts. This also means listeners. And so just for a frame of reference, I wanted to let you know that this original conversation was about an hour and 20 minutes long. You can look at your podcast app right now and see how long the finished episode is. And I promise I did not cut any valuable information for you. And this episode is going to fly by, and it's a perfect example of why you don't need to take an hour and 20 minutes to listen to this episode, because I edited it for you. Jennifer Longworth, Carrie Caulfield Arick, and Britany Felix. Welcome to Podcast Envy.
Yay!
Thanks, Andrea.
So glad to be here.
So excited.
So this is the first time ever that we have 4 editors on the line right now for Podcast Envy, which is super exciting. And this is what I would like you to do to introduce yourself. Obviously, say your name, the name of your business and or website, and what type of clients you typically work with or love to work with most.
Well, my name is Carrie Caulfield Arick, and I am the owner of YaYa Podcasting, which is YaYaPodcasting.com. And I typically work with clients in the business and coaching space. I'm probably unique in the fact that I don't have a niche, but I have clients who are really passionate about their content and their show, and they're really invested in doing things better and expanding their conversations. So I do offer coaching with my editing services.
And you also have a podcast.
I have a podcast about podcasting called Just Podcasting, where we talk about the squishy parts of podcasting, like the time and energy that it takes, as well as the financial considerations.
And it's amazing. And I know because I've been on it.
Yes, you have. Yes.
So have I.
Yes. I think Jennifer is the only one who hasn't been on it, but she'll be on next season.
I was going to say, we're going to have to fix that. I am Britany Felix. I started podcasting when I wanted to get out of corporate. I started with a travel podcast, and it has snowballed over the past 3.5 years into a full-time business where I work exclusively with female millennial coaches and consultants who are solopreneurs. And I like to help them launch their shows, and then we sometimes work together for the ongoing editing portion of it. My business and website, podcast, Instagram, Facebook, everything is Podcasting for Coaches.
I'm Jennifer Longworth, Bourbon Barrel Podcasting, empowering Kentuckians to change the world one podcast at a time, bourbonbarrelpodcasting.com. And my current clients, as far as editing go, are all across the country, Orlando, LA, and anywhere in between. A lot of the people I coach right now are here in Kentucky, and I'm looking to help people in Kentucky. That's kind of the mission that dawned upon me last fall. Is like, I should be helping people here locally in Kentucky. And so that's where my passion is.
And you're in the process of building something, building out something, creating something, talking about local, helping, supporting podcasting.
Yes, about 2 weeks ago, I became the owner of a condo, a professional business condo here in Lexington, Kentucky. And one of the rooms that we're focusing on first is a podcast creator studio where local podcasters or video creators, whoever, can come in and create their craft. And then if you're a podcaster, you can either take your memory card and go, or leave it with me and I'll do a full service turnkey. You come in, you record, and that's all you have to do. And I'll post it, all the rest of the stuff for you.
That is awesome because I know that for me, I'm in Chicago, and you would think that in Chicago, there would be tons of places out and about where you could record a podcast with someone. And that is not the case. Whenever I have a client coming in from out of town, or I have somebody who wants to meet, but they don't want to come all the way to my apartment, they're constantly like, well, can we meet at this co-working space? And I'm like, no, they have no quiet space to record. Or, oh, can we record at the library? And I'm like, no, we can't record at the library because it's like tall ceilings in a vintage building with hard walls and echoey this and that, even if we were, reserve a private room. So definitely we need more available recording spaces in the world in general.
Yeah.
Because
even our co-working space here happens to be located on a farm. It has a quiet room.
Yeah, our co-working spaces here in Colorado Springs are terrible. And one of my clients, actually, she's in Kansas, and she's like, oh, I just got this co-working membership, and here's this recording, and let me know if you think it's okay. And you can hear people like slamming the kitchen, like the cabinet doors, and like walking by, full-blown conversations right outside the Skype booth where she thinks it's soundproof, and they never, ever are. So there's definitely a lack of great recording spaces for people.
So Lexington, Jennifer, Chicago, Andrea, Britany, Colorado Springs. Carrie, where are you?
I'm in Delaware. It is a state in America.
The first state.
It is the first state. We're very proud of it.
And what's kind of amazing is that we are all people who are doing similar things in the same industry, who know each other through partly the internet and partly through conferences and things like that. But we'll get to that in a minute. I want to know, what do your clients think you do? What do your friends and family think you do? And what do you actually do? So 3 things. What do your clients think
that meme that we see on
Exactly. Exactly.
My clients think I'm a wizard.
You are.
I don't think they know entirely what I do. They just know that I do it. My family thinks I sit in front of the computer all day. My son tells everybody I'm an audio engineer. So that's nice to get that kind of props when he's telling his friends, how cool his mom is. And then what I actually do is polish people's podcast interviews to save everybody time. I save the actual podcaster the time and hassle of having to do it. And I save the listener time from having to listen to a show filled with ums, ahs, long pauses, and distractions.
For my clients, they think I either, 1, am a magician, or 2, I do absolutely nothing because they're so perfect. So many of my clients have no idea how much work goes into their own show. They think they can just hit record and you just have to push a few buttons and it's perfectly fine. So I've actually had to do some screen share tutorials for some of my clients to be like, no, here's what I actually fix. And then that helps them get a better understanding. My friends and family have zero idea about what I do because even being in the podcast sphere for 3+ years now, most of them don't even know what a podcast is. I have tried so hard to educate them, pull it up on their phone, show them, and they're like, yeah, okay, sure. And their eyes just kind of glaze over. What I actually do, similar to Carrie, is I like to say I give people the gift of time. So my clients have hours back each week to work on other parts of their business so that they can make more money and live their ideal lifestyle. And again, the listeners, I give them time, sometimes as much as, an extra 10, 15, 20 minutes per episode. And when they listen to every single episode of one of my clients' shows, that really, really adds up.
One of my first editing clients ever, she was my first podcast launch client. And then after launch, she was like, I want you to edit my first few episodes, but then I want to learn how to edit them myself. And so we set up a Skype date to do our first editing training. It was going to be an hour, and 15 minutes in, she said, you know what? I'm going to stop you right there. I'm still going to pay you for the hour, but we can end this call right now. I know I never want to do this. She was like, can I please just pay you to keep doing it for me? And I was like, ding. Yes, you
Yeah,
can.
it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Jennifer.
Yeah. My clients, it depends. Some of them think I'm a magician. Some of them think I do, quote, minor edits. And I took that comment a little too personally once. Like, oh, well, those minor edits you do. I'm like, are you kidding me? Did you hear yourself before and then after what I did? It didn't feel like minor edits while I was going through it, but it sounds like minor edits when you're done because you were never there, right? That's our job, just to go in and be like little magic fairies to make this sound beautiful. And what my family thinks I do is get on calls all the time or talk to people. I do a lot of local networking events here too. So I'm always going out to play. And then at night, I'm, like a typical podcast editor, it feels like, doing the work at night and stuff. But I like to say I minimize the distractions of a show so that a listener can hear the message and not get caught up on all of the little vocal tics or the echoes or the background noise, whatever could be distracting from the message. I take it out. If it's a tangent that goes on about potty training, we're in a personal finance podcast, that might hit the cutting room floor too.
I don't know if any of you have ever heard this when somebody says, oh, I don't need to edit my podcast because I just want it to sound natural.
No, natural is any podcaster that says I don't edit, like a big podcaster who says, oh, it's just a natural conversation. They've got an editor to make it sound natural. Like that just doesn't happen.
Every time I see somebody comment that or hear somebody comment that, it like sends me into a blind rage. I'm like, well, you clearly don't actually care about your audience then, period. Like that's what it boils down to. They don't care about their audience.
Yeah, we don't want to listen to that. Yeah,
No.
and a good editor can make you sound natural, like Carrie was saying, without all the crap.
Yep.
Without all the distractions,
Yeah, it's already not natural. It's already not natural because you have microphones in your face, you have headphones on, you're recording, you're conscious of the fact that you're being recorded and that someone is going to be listening. So it's already 100% not natural. So there actually has to be work to go into it to make it feel and sound more natural than if you were just actually having a conversation with no headphones, no microphone, nobody listening in later.
Right. We all can't be Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan spent years.
This show drives me nuts.
Yeah, I know. It's not for me either. But that's what people think. They see that and they want to emulate it. Well, Joe Rogan has spent years learning how to talk to people and talk in public and do that very well. If you're just starting a podcast, you probably have not spent 10 years speaking publicly and learning interview skills,
hosting TV shows. Or you don't have an built-in audience of millions before you ever hit record for the very first time, like he did.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, you want to edit your podcast in some way just to save your listeners some time because you want your point to be clear. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I usually try to explain that an editor is not a magician. We are not wizards. And 100% of the flaws and the screw-ups cannot be removed. They just can't because it is going to sound terrible. So generally what gets left in, what you're not able to remove, makes it sound like a natural conversation. It's just one where you sound a little bit more coherent as a speaker. So I think they are under this impression that editing means you're going to end up sounding like a robot at the end. And that's so not the case.
So one thing I do want to bring up is this podcast editor group for lady editors that was started by someone here on this call. And I want to hear a little bit about that Facebook group, where the idea came from, what the name of it means, since a lot of people join it and don't really even understand the name of it. And
it took me like a year to what it meant. I'm not going to lie.
Sorry.
It must be a Kentucky thing.
Okay, I'm not even the one who came up with the name idea. I don't think.
I think it was you or Emily.
I think it was Emily Prokop.
Yeah.
I don't know. This was kind of a groupthink thing. So Jennifer, Carrie, Emily Prokop, and Alicia's last name is Barnett. Alicia Barnett. So the four of us were at Podcast Movement last year, and we were at the general editors meetup, and we were like the four gals in this room of men.
We were the only four gals in a room full of men.
And I'm going, we need to start a Facebook group because that's my answer to everything in life, and that's where all my friends are. And that's what we needed to do. Is like, we got to have our own Facebook group where we can come and there's no mansplaining allowed. So for a long time, the only rule of the group was no mansplaining allowed.
And I should add that Jennifer, when she said we should start a Facebook group, she pulled out her phone and started a Facebook group.
And did you know right then when you were starting it, did you already have the name? How did the name come about, and what is the name?
The name is Just Busters. Because as women, we say, well, I'm just a mom or I'm just a podcast editor. And as we're editing, we hear our clients do the same thing. Well, I'm just an electrical engineer and I just went to Princeton, all these things. And we belittle ourselves with that one little word. And if you take out that word, I am a mom, I am a podcast editor, I am an electrical engineer, all of a sudden you've totally changed the tone. And so since we want our clients to sound more intelligent, X out the just, and oh my goodness, we've just taken it up a notch, just taking it up a notch. So we want to bust the just, so Just Busters. And I don't think I'm the one who came up with it. It might have been a groupthink thing.
Yes, I think it was Emily came up with the Just Busters because we were talking about that specifically and talking about how male editors don't pay attention to that word for female clients, perhaps, and how important we thought it was that we help women own their authority and expertise.
And claim that power that they have. Yeah.
Right. Just all happened in like 5 minutes. So.
Yeah, just sitting there at the coffee shop in Philadelphia.
And there's t-shirts now, so there's no going back.
Yeah, how many people do we have in the group now?
I think we're approaching 250. So it's grown pretty fast. We've been trying to do outreach and training to any female who edits a podcast, because the other side of this is when you're a female and you're talking about audio editing or audio engineering of any form in a co-ed space, you can run into problems. And you can be dismissed by your male counterparts, or you can just get a pickup line. That's happened to me before. I'm like, what? Now there's a safe space to come and ask technical questions where nobody is going to mansplain you. Nobody's going to make you feel bad for not knowing. And nobody's going to slide into your DMs. So,
so gross. I hate that phrase.
That is creepy.
And it looks like 238. I'm guessing that this is the number of members in that Facebook group right now.
Yes.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Because it's highly specialized. There's not a whole lot of people who are interested in honing their skills and making it better. So I think 238 is pretty incredible.
Britany, how did you even learn how to do the technical stuff and start editing? How did that begin for you?
I'm psychotic. So when I start with a new project, I get super obsessed about it. And I wanted to start my own show. Now, I should say I've always kind of been techie, in our household. It's not my husband who deals with the electronics. It's always me. I'm the one fixing the problems with the computer. Every time we move, I'm rehooking up all of the electronics. So I've always kind of been a little bit techie, but I literally just got in there with my own show and just did it, and slowly kind of, did a YouTube video here and there if there was something I needed to learn, but I'm 100% self-taught.
I can't remember which platform you use, which software.
I use a combination. Isotope RX6 standard to clean everything up, but then I actually do the content editing in Audacity.
Jennifer, how did you learn?
I started teaching myself audio editing in 2005 as part of February Album Writing Month. It's a challenge to write 14 songs in 28 days that my friend founded back then. And so I started just learning basic audio editing. Never thought I'd actually do with it other than mess around every February when this challenge rolled around. And then I worked in radio here at a local community station for a few years and learned a little bit more, still basically self-taught, but there was another engineer in there who actually knew some stuff about EQ and whatever. He's like, well, do you know why you do this? I'm like, no, I have no idea. They just told me to hit this button at this time, and so he kind of gave me a little bit more of the why behind the what, and then realized when the station was being sold to a national place that I could do this on my own and freelance, and then I made the jump.
And what software do you typically use right now?
I use Isotope RX7 Advanced to do the cleanup, and then I edit in Adobe Audition.
And Carrie, how did you get started?
I started with my first podcast, The DigiScrap Geek, and
the what?
It was called The DigiScrap Geek.
DigiScrap
Yes,
Geek.
for digital scrapbookers, essentially. And I wanted it to sound good. And I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, read a lot of stuff, and I was always very frustrated with the why. So I always found myself digging deeper and deeper into why I was pushing the buttons I was pushing. And that led to, I guess, learning enough to become a podcast editor. So I use Adobe Audition and RX7. And I use some plugins, but I don't know how specific you want to get or if anybody cares.
If so, they can book a consultation with you, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because I now do editor training to help you make your workflow easier and your podcasting life better.
Another topic that comes up a lot in the various groups are rates. It's a hot topic, right? Because there are people posting online, oh, I have somebody on Fiverr who edits my podcasts for $5 an episode or $20 an episode or whatever it is. Why on earth would I pay you 100, 120, 150, 200, whatever the rate happens to be? And I know it's like one of those topics that make people uncomfortable. So rather than like doing a comparative analysis of what each of us is charging, because I know that we all kind of figure things differently and we structure our packages and services a little bit differently, how do you go about setting your rates and how do you charge? Like, do you do an hourly? Do you do a per episode? Do you do a monthly retainer? How does that work?
I do per episode, but there are some cases where I do a package. So there's one job I have right now that like, it's going to be 12 episodes, this length, this and this. And I was driving thinking like, okay, I'm locked into 12 episodes. It's a one-time thing. Okay, here's how much it is. So that's kind of an exception to the rule. Usually it's per episode based on the length. So I have a rate for up to 30 minutes, and then I have a rate for over 30 minutes to 60 minutes. And then beyond 60 minutes, let's talk. And then if they want show notes and audiograms or other things then it's additional charges on top of the editing per episode.
I'm per episode as well, but the per episode rate is actually calculated on an hourly rate. So I can make sure that I am charging enough where I can pay my taxes, because the IRS kind of likes that, and then support myself. And I say that because I think this is a thing that the people who are charging $5, $20 tend to miss, is that as a business owner or freelancer, you have obligations. So I don't see how they can just charge that little amount of money.
Or they're in a country where it works a little differently. Yeah.
Right. But I've seen, unfortunately, I've seen American editors do it as well. Or, people in Western countries where I'm like, I don't understand how this works. But aside from that, I will be flexible or can be flexible with how I set up my packages. So I can either just do editing or I can create you a custom package, but it's all based on the same kind of rate structure. And I find that some people want a subscription where it's this much money a month and we don't worry about it beyond that.
Yeah, as I've started working with some more corporate and nonprofit organizational clients, they always want me to quote them a per episode rate and a per 10 episodes rate or per 12 episodes rate. And I'm like, well, it's kind of the same because the amount of work doesn't change. Once your show is initially set up, the amount of work and the time doesn't really change between one episode and 10 episodes. But I've figured that that's just the mindset. And so they want to feel that by committing to a package, they're getting some kind of deal. So now I've just kind of created a fake.
Right. I mean, it's not like they pay for 9 episodes, get the 10th free. Like they're still going to pay for it.
Right. Yeah. Britany, how do you set your rates?
Kind of a little bit interesting. I do per episode, and it is based on mostly the length of the raw audio. And then I, of course, have a surcharge if they go over our agreed upon amount. And that will also sometimes factor in show notes. I don't do any audiograms, social media, transcripts, none of that, because I always explain it that my people generally have VAs or they can hire a VA because they're in business. And so I always explain that a VA is going to be much cheaper than I will be. And I just don't want to mess with it. So I just don't. But after being in business for about 2 years, I realized that I liked how some of the other editors had it set up where they have this monthly pay in advance. It's a flat rate. Whether you give me the episodes or not, you're paying for them. And I wished I had started that from the beginning. I really do.
Yeah, I had one client who, for a long time, she was editing her own show. And then she hired me to do her most recent season because she just was so busy with her business that she was like, I can do this, but it's not really the best use of my time. And I put her on a monthly. And she actually said to me at the end that she was so happy that I charged her what I did and that it was on that fixed monthly because it forced her to take her show more seriously. And I was like, that testimonial is going on my website and my LinkedIn. Oh, yes, it is Podcast Angel time. And if you think that this Podcast Angel spot is going to be promoting my podcast editing and consulting services, you're wrong. I am here to invite you to join the four of us, Britany, Jennifer, Carrie, and me, at She Podcasts Live, happening in Atlanta, Georgia, this October 11 through 13. It is going to be an awesome lady-centric podcasting conference, and all of us are going to be there. We will all be presenting on different topics in different sessions, and I dare say one thing that has made my podcasting life and business so much better is developing community. I know the first few conferences that I went to were a little hard. I tend to be a little bit more introverted in real life. I know it may not seem that way as you're listening to me here, but it's true. And networking is not my favorite thing. And so I felt a little on the outside in the beginning. And so I focused on going to every session I possibly could and trying to cram my head full of knowledge and learning, which is a perfectly fine way to approach a conference. But now, as I have made more pod friends, I totally look forward to the social aspects of these conferences and to expanding my circle and my network. So even if you are more introverted or even if you do have anxiety around these conferences, I highly recommend that you get your ticket to She Podcasts Live if you have not already. Of course. It will be linked in the show notes for this episode in the description of your app and at thecreativeimposter.com/pod-envy046. And yes, that is an affiliate link. That's why this is part of the Podcast Angel, which means that the lovely creators of She Podcasts, Jessica and Elsie, decided to cut us in on a little percentage of anyone who buys a ticket through our affiliate links. And so by going, not only will you greatly benefit, not only does the conference greatly benefit, but also you're helping me out too, which is amazing. The panel workshop that I will be co-facilitating is a voice training panel workshop. And if you head over to the show notes, you will see the topics and days and times of all of my other 3 guests as well. If you can't get to the conference, it's okay. I promise the world will not come to an end. But you can start making your connections now. And you can start by connecting with me through the Podcast Envy VIP Circle. In order to make a circle, we need more than 1 or 2 people. We need several people, and that might be you. This is a way to grow your podcasting network, your podcasting friendships, your podcasting allies, and to build your knowledge base and your skills all at the same time. Learn more, linked in the show notes, and at thecreativeimposter.com/VIP circle. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for being part of my community. And let's get back to the editors. All right, I have some speed round questions. And for each question, we're going to go in this order because this is how you're on my screen. Carrie, Britany, Jennifer. Okay?
All right.
Clockwise. All right. First question. What's your philosophy on ums and ahs? Remove them all, remove none, remove some.
80-20. I have an actual ratio.
Remove as many as you can without sounding like you did, which generally leaves about 20%.
Same thing. I mean, because sometimes you just can't because of the way it's positioned, and that one just has to stay because there's nothing I can do about it. But I want them to sound intelligent, and I don't want to distract from the message. So most of them go.
Loud breathing.
I'm guilty of that.
As you may hear in this episode.
Right. My apologies. I will reduce it. I won't cut it out.
Definitely reduce. The loud intakes of breath after somebody laughs drives me absolutely insane. So they all get reduced by quite a bit, by probably 80 to 90%.
I'll take it out if it's really bad and it's an easy cut. I do have one client who's a loud breather, and I have to run that through a reduction before I even edit it. Because I'm like, oh, every single time. And I can't cut it every single time, and it would just take so long to reduce every single one. So
late client files.
They'll have to wait. I have, other clients that need their stuff out too. So you have to wait.
It's built into my agreement with them that they have to give me all the files and information at least 1 week prior to either the release date or the review date if they want to review it ahead of time. And if they miss that, it's just a flat out standard. Your episode's getting pushed back a week. It's not, I'll get to it when I can. It's not a priority. Just flat out. You're missing this week. We're going to go to the next one.
If it's a rush, I need this within 24 hours, there's a rush fee. If they're just late, they're late, and that's their own fault, and there's in the rotation like they would be otherwise. I mean, I don't have anybody at the moment who is on a set schedule. Most of mine are like, hey, I need this by Tuesday, and they get it to me, enough ahead of time. But if it's within 24 hours, there's a rush charge.
What do you say when a potential new client says, oh my God, your rates are so high? Or do they say that?
I just had, well, it wasn't exactly presented that way, but I just had a consultation call today that was kind of like that. I say I have invested a lot of money and time into my skills and into my tools, and I am very good at what I do. So if my rates don't work for them, then I can recommend them another editor.
Yeah, my response usually is, well, I understand that a budget is a budget, and I have a list of recommended editors I can introduce you to. Period. I don't try to sell them on my services. If that's their initial reaction, they're going to fight me on so many different things throughout the process, and they're going to try and get free services. There's going to be scope creep in what they want me to do. So I just don't even mess with it.
Scope creep. Oh my God, that's such a good band name.
New band name called it.
Yeah, I want to talk more about scope creep.
Most of the time they don't say, oh my gosh, your rates are too high. They just say like, oh, I found someone else to work with, which means your rates were too high for me. And I just wish them the best. And that's that. Like, well, good luck. I'm here if you need me. It's kind of how I leave it, because I had a consultation recently and they're upfront. They say, well, I'm looking for rates. Well, I know that if they're calling around looking for rates, they're not going to work with me. I just know that. And so I was not surprised when I got the rejection email, if you want to call it that.
But what's interesting is, have you ladies ever had anybody come back to you later? Because I have.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody who said I was too expensive. They went with a cheaper editor. And then, 6 months later, they come back and they're like, please save me. Please, please let me, take me on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes you just don't know what you're getting for your money, and you need to have that experience. And that's okay. That's why, I never close the door on anybody.
Biggest facepalm moment or editing fail or worst editing moment ever?
Oh, there's so many. No, I can't really think of one. It's figuring out luffs was probably the most challenging, frustrating time in my editing life ever, where I wanted to jump off a bridge.
Like the whole debate about 14 luffs, 16 luffs.
No, just figuring out how to do it.
What they were.
Yeah, just trying to understand the concept and figuring out how to do it. Yeah, that was not one of my finer moments.
So I also have so many. I actually started my very first client just a few months after starting my very own show. So I've been doing this for over 3 years now. And it was the second client I ever had. I accidentally uploaded the wrong client's show and released it. And these people were nightmares. They were horrible, horrible clients. Admittedly, this was totally my mistake. I was actually out camping with my husband, and I just so happened to, when we finally got service, had a ton of voicemails, all kinds of stuff, and I had to drive 30 minutes back to my house to get this file swapped out. Will hopefully never happen again. It was so horrible. And then I think the other times are frustrations of getting, 90% of the way through an hour-long interview episode, only to have my computer crash and have to start completely over from scratch. Those are always gut-wrenching and make me question all of my life choices.
Yep.
And the other huge thing, I think, is just having bad clients, having horrible, horrible clients, which they have taught me so many lessons, and I now have amazing clients because of them. But dear Lord, those months that I have spent with terrible clients were, they can wreck your entire life because they just leave you feeling so terrible, and it permeates through. So yay, podcasting.
So mine goes back to one of my first freelance clients. I guess my second one, and I was not sure what to charge at that time. So it was severely undercharging for a client who couldn't even pay me on time for my severely undercharging rate. The sound quality was less than ideal. I had to do some mic technique coaching, and the topic wasn't anything I cared about. So it's not like I would listen to the show if I wasn't editing. Those are my favorite shows, the ones that I benefit listening while I'm editing. This one was not like that. I don't remember who said, well, I'm not going to do any more episodes. I think they bowed out, and I was like, okay, thank goodness. Now I have my Thursday night back. Whew, that's over. And then they came back to me like, hey, could we work together again at the same rate? I'm like, no, I will never charge anyone that low again, because it was such a drain on me and definitely not worth it. And back to like Carrie was saying about consider your hourly rate, that was not even close to minimum wage what I was charging.
Right. You don't like people who aren't paying you minimum wage, at least. You tend to build up some resentment there. So
yeah, I think we've all been there.
Okay, so I'm going to reverse the order on this one because it's not fair that Jennifer gets the longest to think of her answer to the question. So we're going to go in the reverse order.
Dang it.
This is the last of the speed round, which is what has been the biggest gift or benefit or life-changing something that you have gotten from either your editing business or podcasting in general, or being a part of this community?
Well, there you go. You nailed it. It's the community. It's the meeting people. It's the getting out of this group here, the four of us. Britany, I have not met in real life yet, but I've met a lot of the other people out there in real life, and it's just the community, and which is why I said we need to form the Just Busters Facebook group, because it's all about community. So I've met a lot of good friends here online and in person. As far as lasting impact, that's where it's at.
Yeah, for me, I credit it with literally changing my life. I think my trailer episode of my current podcast is called like How a Podcast Changed My Life or something like that, because all my entire life, ever since I was a little girl, I've known I was not meant to like have a traditional job. I've worked office jobs, corporate jobs, absolutely miserable, to the point where I literally wished to get into a car accident on the way to work just so I would not have to go in. Very bad space mentally, because I was not living the life that I knew I was supposed to have. And starting a podcast all those years ago led to something I never even knew existed. And now I get to work from home every day, which has been my dream. I don't have to take any calls with clients or anything before noon, which is amazing. I get to just have the freedom that I've always craved, which, translates to my other main passion in life, which is travel. So now I get to go on these long extended trips, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. My one this fall is 9 weeks. I'm going to be traveling because of podcasting, because of this industry, because of the decision I made 3.5 years ago, because of my clients. It's literally changed my life.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to build on Jennifer and Britany, because I feel all those things too. Podcasting really made me a better advocate for my autistic son, and I was able to navigate an incredibly difficult situation with the schools. And I credit that to podcasting, to having the skills to speak, to being able to own my authority and expertise, and having the confidence to do so. For my business, I take so much joy in watching my clients blossom into amazing podcasters who kind of step into themselves and their message in a way that's transformative. That's a big deal for me. And then being able to help other podcast editors is amazing, and it's so rewarding. And I'm really digging that.
Some of you are speaking at Podcast Movement this year, and all or some, or I don't even know what everyone has coming up, whether that be something they're launching, a course they're offering. This is the time to invite people to come join you on whatever journey you're on, wherever they can join you, hear you, hang out with you, learn from you, work with you, etc. And we'll start with Jennifer.
Again, at bourbonbarrelpodcasting.com, and I will be sponsoring and presenting at the new Podcaster Primer again this year at Podcast Movement. I participated in that last year and was fortunate enough to be welcomed back to do it again. So if you're a brand new podcaster, haven't quite started a podcast, we refer to you folks as pod curious here at the Lexington Podcasters Group. So even if you're just pod curious and you're going to come to Podcast Movement, it's the day before the actual conference starts, one of the preliminary workshop. So new podcast primer, come see me there. And we talked earlier about how here in Lexington, Kentucky, I am starting a studio, and I'm also co-founder of Lexington Podcasters and Louisville Podcasters Meetup. So if you're in the Kentucky area, definitely meet up with me somehow. So bourbonbarrelpodcasting.com.
Now, real quick, Jennifer, would that new podcast primer be last year when you had to rip the microphone out of the...
No, that was at PodFest. so just to clarify, yes. Well, it was a Pechakucha talk, so you got 5 minutes exactly, and as soon as your slides start, you get 20 seconds per slide or 15 seconds per slide, whatever.
And
it
it's
is.
on a
it's
timer.
a timed amount.
Yeah,
It's on a timer, and there was a guy who was like emceeing it, and he was talking over my slide, and I had timed it out perfectly. So yes, I literally took the microphone out.
I was there. It was a great moment.
I've seen the video, and I can't tell you how many times I've watched it because it is so fantastic.
I think the video should go in the show notes. It's that good.
The link to the video, is it publicly available?
It can be.
That's Jennifer literally taking her power back.
I know. Well, I mean, the guy was talking over my slide. I knew I only had 15 seconds.
Hashtag reclaim my time, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
I can't silence Jennifer. Anyways, so for me, because I am going to be spending 9 weeks traveling throughout the U.S. attending Podcast Movement, She Podcasts Live, and then the rest of the time I will be visiting various countries in Europe. I'm kind of scaling back on, what I'm launching, what I'm putting out there. I am still taking one-on-one clients, and I do have an online course for people who can't really afford to work with a consultant one-on-one, but they need a little bit more guidance than just let me Google this and see if I can figure this out on my own. And that is how to start a podcast for your coaching or consulting business. If you just go to podcastingforcoaches.com, everything that you need to know is there. The course, my podcast, how to contact me, all that fun stuff.
I will be at Podcast Movement in Orlando. I'm having a session there called People Breathe, the Art of Editing an Interview. And you can come to my session and connect with me and hang out with me. I like that. I will also be at She Podcast Live. I am also launching a course in the very near future called Launch Your Podcast, which is pretty self-explanatory. And basically, I've taken all the material that I use for my one-on-one launch clients and condensed it in a course. So I will make that available, and I'm going to offer it as self-paced or give you the option to do it in a one-on-one coaching with me so you can have a little guidance and some hand-holding while you go through it. And then I'm also going to be launching soon a course on kickstarting your podcast editing business, because I think I think there's some things that when you're starting out would be really nice to know. And I don't think there's anything out there like that yet. So you can go to YaYaPodcasting.com and sign up for my newsletter, and you'll get all the information of when that's going to be released.
So we're going to close with the best advice that you have for someone who is thinking of hiring and working with a podcast editor for the first time, or B, someone who is thinking of turning their podcasting habit into an editing business. We're going to start with Britany because you're in the middle, Britany, and I have not started with you for anything.
Okay. So I will say I have an episode of my podcast that is literally tips for hiring a podcast editor, where I go into this exactly. I talk about things that they should be aware of that they're probably not aware of already, red flags. I have a PDF of the exact questions that they can ask when they hire them. So I would recommend people check out that episode. And then really quickly, I'll actually answer the second one and say that if anyone is considering starting a podcast editing business of their own, they need to be in 2 Facebook groups. One, Just Busters, of course, if you're a female. And then if you're not a female, and even if you are, there is another one that you kind of have to hunt and dig. You have to deal with a little bit of mansplaining, but there's a lot of valuable information, and that's Podcast Editors Club.
Is that Steve Stewart's group?
Yes. When you're considering hiring a podcast editor, there's one thing that you can do that I think will save you a lot of hassle, and it's very easy. Ask the editor you're interviewing for references. And then to take it a step further, go listen to that show, and you'll be able to get an idea of the quality of work you're going to get. If you're thinking about starting a podcast editing business, be aware that you're going to need not just editing skills, but customer service skills and business administration skills.
And time management.
Yeah, time management. It's way beyond just editing a podcast. As a matter of fact, I probably spend 25% of my time at this point editing podcasts and 75% on everything else.
I'm going to flip it. And for the person looking to start an editing business, make sure that it's a long game. So you might have to start small. And be sure you enjoy editing. I know that sounds goofy, but if you really hate it and you're just doing it because you think it's easy money, well, maybe this isn't the job for you. So you do have to be slightly a people person to communicate with clients and stuff, but be sure you enjoy the editing too. And a great way to get started is to find other editors who are looking to outsource. There's a few of them in the Podcast Editors Club who outsource to new editors who are looking for work to build their portfolio and stuff. And that's a great way to get started instead of just begging, I need clients. I'm going to undervalue myself and charge pennies on the dollar. Find someone in the Podcast Editor Club who's looking for someone, and that's a better way to go about it. I mean, also, as far as looking for an editor, is it going to be value for value? How much is your time worth to you when you're considering the payment? As we mentioned a while ago, some people are like, oh my gosh, I don't want to pay that much. Well, you're just going to get 4 hours of your life back. What's that worth to you?
Anything else that I didn't ask or that you want to say before we say goodbye?
I did forget to mention that I have a podcast that I host. And, maybe because I'm all about the editing, but Bourbon Barrel Podcasting is also the name of my show. And I interview Kentucky podcasters about their show and their favorite beverage of choice, which is sometimes bourbon, sometimes not. But anyway, Bourbon Barrel Podcasting is also the name of my show.
I don't know if all of us are, but I know at She Podcast Live, there's going to be like a consultants corner or a coaching corner. So if anyone listening is attending She Podcast Live, I know that at least some of us on this call are going to be a part of that. And so you can come get feedback, ask us questions. I actually even pitched the idea to one of the creators of it, Jessica, for anybody who doesn't know, about doing live audits of people's shows in real time, because that's a service I offer, where I go through and check out everything and their website and say, hey, here's what I've noticed that you might want to work on. She loved that idea, and I think we're going to incorporate that into that consultant coaching corner.
That sounds so masochistic to me.
To me, it sounds like so much fun.
Never sign up for that. Podcast Envy is produced by your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder. That's me. The Podcast Envy theme music is by Valentin Sosnitsky, courtesy of the Free Sound Project at freesound.org, and our podcast Angel music is by Benjamin Mastropolito, also on freesound.org as Lemon Cream. All music is licensed under the Creative Commons. Our episodes are mixed by Edwin Ruiz, and hey, if you want your show to sound as good as ours, hire us. Put the magic audio mojo of the Creative Imposter Studios to work for you. Thanks so much for listening, and here's to making your podcast the envy of everyone else.